Hi everybody, this is Merlin from the Netherlands with a quick and dirty video to accompany my latest article called Time Records Part 1. In Time Records Part 1, I talk about two phenomena, namely JND, which stands for Just Noticeable Difference for Pitch, and another phenomenon which is known as critical bands. And in this video, I will make you listen to both phenomena in the hope that our understanding of the article is improved, that it's more clear. So let's start with JND first. JND is the just noticeable difference for pitch, which means that if we listen to pure tones in series and we want to detect a difference in pitch, that this difference needs to be large enough for us to become noticeable. So let's take 1 kilohertz, for example. If we listen to a 1 kilohertz pure tone, a sine wave, and we increase the difference by only 1 hertz to 1001 hertz, then that 1 hertz difference in that region of the frequency spectrum is too small for you and me to detect as a difference in pitch, an audible, noticeable difference in pitch. Well, let's put that to the test. Here's a 1 kilohertz sine wave. I'm going to increase the frequency by 1 hertz, and let's listen again. Sounds virtually the same. So clearly this 1 hertz difference in the region of 1K is too small to be noticeable. Therefore, let's increase the interval by something more, something in excess of 1 hertz, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hertz, which puts us at the other side of the black line, which would suggest that a difference of 6 hertz in this region of the spectrum, audible spectrum, a 6 hertz difference is large enough for you and me to become noticeable. Well, let's give it a listen. There's our 1K sine wave, again, the pure tone, and now I'm going to increase it by 6 hertz. It takes some practice, but this is slightly higher in pitch. I will go back and forth without talking in between so that you can concentrate on detecting the just noticeable difference. If it's difficult, don't worry, there's a reason that it's called just noticeable. So you can tell that there's a difference in pitch, unlike the 1 hertz before, which was too small to be noticeable. The 6 hertz at this frequency range is noticeable as a increase in pitch because we increased the frequency by 6 hertz. So, so far, so good. Let's go down in frequency and repeat the experiment at, let's say, 100 hertz, because the same chart would suggest that you and I should be able to tell the difference between 100 hertz and 101 hertz. This time around, it's only a 1 hertz difference, which we couldn't tell at 1 kilohertz, but according to this chart, at 100 hertz, this should be a noticeable difference. So let's give that a try. Let's start with 100 hertz first. Now, I don't expect any of your smartphones or laptop computers to reproduce this frequency, so now would be about the time to bring out your headphones. So there's 100 hertz. Let's increase the frequency by 1 hertz. So this time around, you and I can tell the difference, even if it's as little as 1 hertz, which we couldn't do for higher frequencies in the region of 1K. And that is basically what the JND shows you, the minimum amount of frequency increase that we need to introduce to be able to detect a difference in pitch for pure tones, for sine waves, when played in series. This is, of course, a very simple experiment, and there's nothing that keeps you from doing this experiment yourself within the confinement of your living room. Okay, now you and I can tell the difference between 100 hertz and 101 hertz when they are played one after another. But what if we now expose ourselves to these two pure tones simultaneously? Can you and I then detect an interval, as in a music chord? Can we detect two separate, distinct pitches? Well, that remains to be seen. So let's give that a try and listen to two sine waves, two pure tones simultaneously instead of one. So there we go. There's two pure tones. One has a frequency of 100 hertz. The other one has a frequency of 101 hertz. And let's see if we can still hear the difference between these two pitches or not. Apparently not. What you hear right now is a phenomena which is called beating. Instead of hearing two distinct separate frequencies, we hear one frequency of which the volume changes periodically. It sounds like an amplitude modulated signal. And in the article, I explain that the perceived frequency, which I like to think of as the carrier wave, has a frequency which is equal to the average of both frequencies, which in this case would be 100.5 hertz. And that the beating frequency that we hear is the difference between both frequencies, which in this case would be 1 hertz, which means that the signal that you right now hear is beating with a tempo of 1 beat per second. And clearly this is temporal in nature because the amplitude goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So if we consult the second chart, which is the critical bandwidth chart, then according to this chart, you and I cannot tell the difference between 100 hertz and 101 hertz when played simultaneously because these two frequencies, the interval between these two frequencies is not large enough for us to tell the difference. According to this chart, we need to separate these frequencies at least by 10, 20, 30, 40 hertz for us to tell the difference, to hear two distinct separate pitches, an interval as in a music chord. Okay, well, let's see what happens if we increase the interval, the difference in frequency between these two frequencies. This is beating at 2 beats per second, 3 beats per second, 4, 5. And you can clearly hear that this is modulating. At one point, the modulation is so quick, for example, right now, where it's 20 beats per second, that people also refer to it as roughness. Right now, the difference is 25 hertz. If we put our cursor readout on one tone, we see that it's a G2, 100 hertz. And if we put the cursor readout on the other frequency, 125 hertz, we see that it's a B2. On the keyboard of a grand piano, that would be considered a third, 3 white keys. And if we try, we might be able to hear an interval. Let's listen to both sine waves independently from each other. That's the 125, the B2. That's the 100, the G2. And now let's turn them on together. And some of you might be able to detect an interval as in a music chord, which in this case would be a third or third octave. However, if we reduce the difference in frequency, then it will go from roughness into beating again. So there we go. So let's increase that difference even further. Let's try to go to the 40 Hertz and see whether we can hear a distinct interval, as in a music chord, to two distinct separate pitches. So there you go. We are now separated by roughly half an octave. And I will turn one off. And now you can hear an interval as in a music chord. However, if we reduce the difference in frequency, it goes from roughness ultimately again into beating, starts to modulate again. It's no longer two separate frequencies. It's a single frequency that is being modulated over time. And we cannot tell the difference between 100 Hertz and 101 Hertz, contrary to the scenario where we play these two frequencies one after another.